The clock started ticking the moment she opened that old chest in the attic. Covered in a thick blanket of dust and spider webs, it sat silently for decades, forgotten, abandoned, hidden. But what she found inside didn't just belong to her past. It belonged to a lineage marked by betrayal, secrets, and an inheritance too powerful for anyone to comprehend. In 3 days, the truth would unravel, and when it did, the world would never look at her family the same way again. Mira had never felt like she belonged. Not at school, not among friends, and certainly not in her own home. Her parents were cold, almost robotic in the way they handled emotions. Her mother, Elira, always had a distant look in her eyes, as if watching a memory only she could see. Her father, Daniel, was stricter than most, policing every step she took and reacting violently to the smallest disobedience. On her 21st birthday, something changed. It wasn't the kind of birthday celebrated with balloons and cake. Instead, her parents sat her down in the living room and placed a small rusted key in her palm. It was old, centuries old maybe, and attached to was a torn note. It's time. Go to the attic. You'll understand soon. Her heart pounded. She had never been allowed in the attic. That space was strictly off limits. Growing up, she had asked 1,000 times why, but the only answer she ever got was sharp. Because that place doesn't belong to you yet. But now it did. The door creaked open like a throat clearing itself after a long silence. The air inside was cold, as if it hadn't been disturbed in years. Dust danced in the golden light, pouring through the small circular window at the top. The wooden floor groaned under her weight, as though whispering, "Turn back." In the farthest corner stood a chest. Not a modern storage box or suitcase, but a solid wooden chest, darkened with age and marked with carvings in a language Mira didn't understand. Her hand trembled as she inserted the key into the lock. It turned with an eerie smoothness, as if it had been waiting just for her. Inside were objects wrapped in black silk. She unwrapped the first and gasped. A mirror, but not any mirror. The glass was cracked, yet her reflection seemed to move independently of her, almost studying her in return. Beneath it were yellowed letters tied with crimson ribbon. They bore her family crest, a serpent swallowing its own tail. She had seen the emblem on old books hidden in her father's study, but was always told it meant nothing. She read the first letter. "Mira, if you're reading this, then the curse has not yet consumed you. You still have time, but only 3 days. Our bloodline is not what you think. We come from a long line of watchers, chosen by forces that once governed balance between light and shadow. But something went wrong. Someone betrayed the oath. And now, every firstborn daughter must face the trial. The world believes in fate, but blood carries memory. And memory never forgets." Her fingers tightened around the paper. The candlelight flickered, and for a brief moment, the shadow behind her seemed to stretch unnaturally long. Mira spent the rest of the night going through the contents. Portraits of ancestors with haunting eyes, maps with towns that no longer existed in one journal, written by a woman named Seraphine. The last entry was dated exactly 150 years ago and read, "If she fails, the line ends. If she succeeds, the truth rises." She didn't sleep that night. By morning, things began to change. She noticed subtle differences in how people looked at her. Strangers stared a second too long. Her boss suddenly gave her the day off without her asking. And when she walked past an elderly woman at the bookstore, the woman murmured, "It begins again." Day one had started. At home, Mira confronted her parents, demanding answers. Her father, pale and sweating, sat her down. "We didn't tell you because we want to protect you. But protection is a lie. You were born into something ancient, something watching." He explained that their ancestors weren't just caretakers of a family secret. They were gatekeepers to something darker, something locked beneath the foundations of their ancestral home. Every firstborn is tested, her mother added with shaking hands. And every test begins with a warning. 3 days. You will see things, hear voices, be shown temptations. If you survive, you ascend. If you fail, you disappear like the others. Myra's heart raced. What others? Her father looked away. Her mother whispered, You had a sister once. Her name was Leora. The room spun. She failed, her father said bluntly, and now her memory lives only in shadows. Mira ran, out of the house, away from the lies. She found herself back in the attic, breathing hard, desperately trying to make sense of what she'd just learned, that she wasn't alone in this, that someone else, someone blood, had once stood in her shoes and had vanished into the silence. Suddenly, the mirror inside the chest began to glow. This time, her reflection wasn't her at all. It was a girl, pale, crying, bloody fingernails, whispering through cracked lips. Don't let them take you too. Mira fell back, screaming, but the voice wasn't done. The whisper continued, growing louder. They will try to twist you. They will show you your worst fear. But the truth is hidden in the blood. Read the journal. Trust no one. She scrambled for the journal, flipping through the pages until she found a section labeled the first night. The first night brings illusion. The second, temptation. The third, judgment. Those who do not know who they are swallowed whole. But those who remember their blood will unlock power that cannot be caged. Mira pressed her hand to her chest. Who was she really? That night, as the clock struck midnight, she was awakened by a sharp knock at her bedroom window. She lived on the third floor. Heart pounding, she pulled back the curtain. No one was there, but written in fog across the glass were the words, "You have 2 nights left." The truth was clawing its way through her reality. Her bloodline was not cursed, but chosen for something far greater and darker than she had ever imagined. The world she knew was cracking, and through those cracks, something ancient was waking. Mira now understood. This was not just about survival. It was about remembrance. In 2 days, the truth about her bloodline would no longer be a secret, and the world would be forced to reckon with what her ancestors had buried in darkness. 2 days remained, and the walls between reality and nightmare were thinning. Mira had thought her life was ordinary, just a girl with distant parents, quiet days, and a dull sense of not belonging. But now, with each tick of the clock, the truth was bleeding into her world like ink spilled across fragile paper. Her bloodline wasn't just mysterious. It was haunted, and the weight of centuries-old secrets was waking with her name written in fire. Mira didn't sleep the next night, not because she didn't try, but because sleep no longer came naturally. Every time she closed her eyes, she was yanked into visions, some ancient, others disturbingly modern. In one, she stood in a forest surrounded by hooded figures chanting in a language her lips somehow understood. In another, she was shackled to a stone slab while something watched her from the shadows, whispering, "You are the key and the lock. Break one and the other breaks two." The second day began in silence, but it was the kind of silence that screamed. Her phone buzzed violently just past 8 a.m. A message, no number, just a single sentence. The blood remembers. Then it died, permanently. No signal, no restart, no battery issue. Just dead, like the world around her was cutting her off, isolating her before the final blow. She went back to the attic. It was the only place where the truth seemed more stable than the world outside. She flipped through Seraphine's journal again, this time reading the entry labeled the second night. Temptation walks with honey breath. It wears familiar faces. It speaks with comforting lies. It offers escape. But to follow it is to forget. Forget who you are. Forget what you carry. And those who forget disappear into nothing. As the sun faded behind gray clouds, Myra's parents suddenly became warmer, kinder. Her mother brought hot cocoa to her room, something she hadn't done since Mira was a child. Her father offered to talk about college, money plans. He even laughed. For a moment, Mira allowed herself to breathe, to think maybe this was all a misunderstanding, some bizarre prank rooted in family trauma. But then she noticed the painting in the hallway. It was crooked. She fixed it just out of instinct. Behind it, carved into the wall, was her name, over and over, in deep, scratched letters. Mira, 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 dozens of times. She spun around. Her father was watching from the end of the hall. You weren't supposed to see that, he said softly. Mira backed away. What is this? Why is my name? His face twitched, and for a moment, something shimmered beneath his skin. Something not human. Her mother appeared behind him. You don't have to be afraid, sweetheart, she said sweetly. Just give in. We'll take care of everything. You don't need to carry it anymore. The hallway began to twist. Their voices stretched, warped. She blinked, and suddenly they weren't her parents. They were shadows, shifting, formless, with eyes that pulsed like coals. She ran. Outside, the sky had turned a sickly yellow. The trees bent as if bowing to something unseen. Every window reflected her, but not her current self. Older versions, broken versions. One where she was blind. Another where her hands were covered in blood. Then she saw her, the girl from the mirror, Leora, standing at the edge of the street, in a white dress stained red, eyes hollow, tears made of ash. They're not your parents, she whispered. They never were. They were given to you, to shape you, test you. But now, the real ones are calling. Mira approached her carefully. Why are you showing me this? Why now? Leora reached out. Because I failed. I let the second night take me. I believed the illusion. And now I live in the space between time and death. But you still have a chance. You have one night left. At dawn, you must go to the Hollow Chapel. The answers lie there. Your blood knows the way. And then she vanished. Mira looked around. The world seemed slower, as if time had hiccuped. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, the Hollow Chapel. She didn't know where it was, but something inside her did. A pull, an instinct. She walked for hours, through empty streets, past cars that seemed abandoned mid-motion, and houses whose lights flickered despite no one being home. The world felt paused, waiting. As she turned the corner near the woods at the edge of town, she saw it, an ancient chapel, partially sunken into the earth, wrapped in vines and shadows. Its spire cracked, its bell long gone, but its door stood open, inviting her in. She entered. It smelled of rotten earth. The pews were rotted. The altar was scorched black. But behind it stood a statue of a woman with Myra's face. Her blood ran cold. Beneath the statue was a basin. Inside it, a scroll wrapped in aged leather. As she unrolled it, words burned into the air in golden flame. The first watcher was born in fire. The last watcher shall awaken in shadow. And when the third night ends, the truth shall scream. She dropped it. The room suddenly trembled. Whispers filled the air. She turned, and the entire chapel was filled with them, watchers. Dozens, hundreds, transparent, glowing faintly, all with her eyes. One stepped forward. Seraphine, you have come far, child of ash. The final trial awaits. You must choose. Embrace your blood and carry the burden, or reject it and lose yourself. What burden? Mira asked, voice trembling. Seraphine extended her hand, and the scroll reappeared. You are the seal. Your blood binds the gate. If you walk away, the gate will open, and the shadows will pour into your world. Mira stood there, wind howling through the broken stained glass. Then what happens to me if I accept? You become what your ancestors feared, Seraphine said. You become truth. You become memory. And memory never dies. Mira, clench your fists. Then I choose to remember. The watchers bowed. A beam of silver light struck the altar. Mira stepped into it. Her mind exploded with visions, memories from her bloodline. A warrior queen, a healer, a traitor, a child left behind, a gatekeeper who died with secret, and then silence. When Mira awoke, it was dawn. She was lying in the middle of the chapel floor, alone, but everything had changed. The world outside was normal again. The yellow sky's gone, the trees peaceful. She returned home. Her parents were gone, vanished without a trace. But in their place, real memories flooded in. A woman singing to her as a baby. A man with eyes like hers holding her hand by a river. Her true parents. They had died protecting the seal. Her adopted parents were caretakers of the test. temporary guardians given by the Watchers. Now, she was the Watcher. The third night came and went. No visions, no whispers, because the truth was no longer hidden. Mira walked through town now with a different energy. People felt it. Some smiled unknowingly. Others looked away, sensing something too powerful to comprehend. In 3 days, everything had changed. The truth about her bloodline had been buried beneath layers of illusion, fear, and lies. But now it was awake. She was awake. And the world would never be the same again, because blood remembers. And so, do those who carry it.